One. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 13th episode of our Buffalo Bills podcast. Today, we will be recapping the Bills' win against the Chargers. I'd like to welcome my friend Adrian.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so Adrian, the Bills win. They beat the Chargers, but they they narrowly do so. Uh, what do you think of the game, and what do you think of this going forward?
Um, so as we know, the game against the Chargers was not according to plan. Like, because the week prior, if we keep up with football, which I do, they lost the Chargers to the Raiders six by they got scored on by 63 points, and so I was most Bills fans were expecting a dominant performance against the Chargers. It didn't happen, which I think like I said, it was probably going to be a trap game, which it turned out to be because we really struggled on both sides of the ball specifically in the first like half, like both sides weren't clicking. We were just like the defense was letting up like too many long drives to Easton Stick, which is not a good sign. And also the offense just could not get going. And mainly like I'm happy we got the win, but like my main takeaway is that it needs to improve in the future. But really all that matters now is the win because that's what we need to do. We just need to stack wins. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think. I expected a blowout, but I'll take the win. I think, as you said, as long as they keep stacking wins, that's the key. Now, right, we're 9-6. If we win the final two games and the Cowboys lose the final two games, I mean the Dolphins lose the final two games, we'll win the division. So we're in a position where essentially all we need is for the Dolphins to lose to the Ravens and we need to beat the Patriots. And then we're basically then we control our destiny completely. So I'll take the win. It's not how I wanted to happen, but I'll take it. Okay. Now looking at some of the individual performances, Gabe Davis, 130 yards, for receiving. But Diggs only had 29 yards for five receiving. How would you say Diggs played? It's yet another week where he hasn't had that great of a game.
Oh, the Diggs thing is very interesting to me because he's supposed to be our number one guy. He's been that for the past 3 years, but he's been very disappointing this year. And like in terms of how important it is or how impactful like it is that he's not performing, I would say it's like kind of concerning, but it's also not like the end of the world because we don't essentially need Diggs in order for our offense to click. He's just that extra step that we need to take because in these previous weeks when Diggs hasn't been performing well, like he's been what's it like when he's been just getting like 30 yards a game, we've still been like doing well on offense. But my issue is come postseason, like if he keeps like playing like this, like we're gonna need him to show up because he's our number one receiver. And number one receivers going to the playoffs, they usually are the ones that like elevate their team to like to win those games. So I'm gonna need him to step it up in these next few games. But if not, we can still win without him because we're a good offense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think in a way it's good that he's been bad because it makes Allen like forced to give his other receivers a chance. And now I think going into the playoffs, I think you'd feel good about Cook, obviously. You feel you'd have to trust Diggs, even though he hasn't played well. I think you'd have to trust him and throw to him. You feel a little better about Davis, who had a good game against the Chargers. You feel a little better about Shakir and even Kincaid, who I think still has a lot of potential. So, but yeah, I agree. He has to. I'm looking for a big performance going like big performances going forward. He has to turn it up a little bit going into the playoffs because I don't think we're going to be able to win if he doesn't play well.
Yeah.
Looking at Allen, he went 15 for 21, 237 yards, one touchdown, but an interception. How would you rate his performance against the Chargers?
Um, I'd say like if I had to give it like out of 10, maybe like a 7 because his stat line, like, I could you read that stat line again one more time?
Yeah, 15 for 21,
Yeah.
237 yards, one touchdown, one interception.
Okay, that's not bad because but to me, I look at like quarterback ratings as like a whole, and
Yes,
I think as a whole,
90.7. For that
yeah, yeah,
game, it was
yeah.
90.7. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I think that if you watched him play, I don't think that the reason why we were struggling on offense in the first half was because of him. I think that the play calling could have been a lot better, and I think that um just overall the whole offense wasn't clicking. I don't think it was just him that was like not performing well. And I think that as the game went on, as we needed him to step up when we were like losing against a pretty bad team, he that's when he decided to play well. So I think that to me, I trust him to play well in the clutch because he's a clutch quarterback, and I'm happy that that's the case because that's good for the playoffs. And but I'm pretty like happy. I don't want to say happy, but like I'm okay with his performance. He did what he needed to do. He came up big on the last drive, got us into field goal range, and overall was pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm looking for Allen maybe to throw the ball a little more in a game.
Mhm.
Um, I think his performance wasn't terrible, although it was another interception, and I think he could probably throw the ball a little bit more. He handed it to
Yeah,
Cook 20 times,
yeah,
which only resulted in 70 yards. So,
yeah.
but overall, I think he did what he had to do. Going into the playoffs, as you said, I think I do trust him because he has performed well in clutch moments and he's a good player. How do you feel about
Yeah.
this defense going into the playoffs? So with what they did against the Chargers, somewhat um disappointing. What do you think of the defense going into the playoffs?
So it's a little concerning, as you said, because well, not only the performance was bad, but it's also because of the amount of injuries that we've suffered on defense. Well, early in the season, we all know Matt Milano, Trey White, they both went down, and those are two of our most important players. And just overall, we're pretty thin in a lot of positions. Like I'm pretty sure that we're gonna have to step it up. Like some guys that are on this defense are gonna have to step up. Like one player that has been stepping up is Ed Oliver. I think that his performances have really elevated this defense. Late in that game, he's the one that really stepped up and made some stops late in the game. But to me, it's like early in the game, we cannot allow other offenses who are mediocre, like the Chargers, to just cook us pretty much. I think that we need to do a better job as a whole defensive unit to to just stop these explosive plays, these first downs. Like people like the Chargers, Easton Stick was able to just run down the field on some drives. I think that's going to need to improve, but overall as a defense, I'm not too worried because it's still a good unit. Like at fully healthy, it's one of the best in the league. But I think that we're really gonna need to play better going forward because if not, it's gonna be another playoff exit, I think.
Yeah. For me, I think the Bills have a lot of talent on their defense. And as you said, I do think it's a good unit when everyone's healthy. But going into the playoffs, I don't think I fully trust this defense. Um, it just seems like they've been really inconsistent and they have had many unclutched performances. Many there's been many games, specifically the last few years, where they blew the game late. Um, I think in order for us to win in the playoffs, I honestly think that we're gonna have to Allen's gonna have to be able to play really well. I don't think we're gonna have to legitimately score a lot of touchdowns and field goals because I don't think the defense is holding like the Ravens or the even the Dolphins or Chiefs or any of those teams under like 25 points. I think a lot of the playoff games are going to be somewhat high scoring because
Mhm.
just the injuries and the lack of consistency. That's why I feel a little better about the offense going into the playoffs because over the last over the last 8 games or whatever it's been, they've been really consistent. So I think they've built up the momentum. I don't think the defense has done so yet. If they could, I'm looking for them to play well the last 2 weeks, but I can't say that I feel great about them going into the playoffs, as you said.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at James Cook, he fumbled the ball twice and he did have 70 yards, but it was over 20 carries. Overall, how would you evaluate his performance?
So coming off the coming off the Dallas game, we all thought that this was the turning point for him and that he was gonna now be a key part of this offense. And then I had a feeling because with all the hype surrounding him that he was gonna maybe have a off game. And it turns out that he did. He wasn't really that electric. He's every time he touched the ball, it would be for like 3 or 4 yards at most. And I feel like it was kind of disappointing from him, but you know, every game, like players are bound to have disappointing performance. I think that we fed him a little bit too much in this game, though. I think that maybe Brady thought that he was gonna have another electric performance like against Dallas. Like, oh, he was really good against Dallas. He's gonna do it again. But I think that we need to now learn how to balance our offense, not just overfeed James Cook, because I don't think he's a bell cow running back where he could just get 25 carries a game and carry the offense that way. I think that we need to balance our attack and not put load on James Cook because we do have an elite quarterback. So overall, it was not great performance from him, but I still think he's a great player.
Yeah, I think it wasn't a great performance at all, but I do think at least now going into the playoffs, I think James Cook has built himself up to the point where other teams view him as a legitimate threat now. Will have to seriously guard against the run instead of
Mhm.
earlier in the year when I that wasn't happening. So yeah, it wasn't a great performance, but I do trust him somewhat going into the playoffs.
Mhm.
Uh, right, but now with this win, the Bills have moved into the sixth seed in the AFC. This is also with the Colts losing and the um the 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 Texans losing, and I think the Steelers lost too actually. But we're
Mhm.
in the sixth seed. We have a playoff spot. Essentially, as long as we win the next 2 games, we're in for sure. Do you view it as now it's almost a guarantee that we make the playoffs?
So I don't see a situation where we don't make the playoffs pretty much because okay, let's say disaster strikes and we lose to New England, which it's not going to happen. But let's say that happens, we still have the rest of the AFC teams that we're battling with. If most of those guys lose, like because we have a better record than a lot of the ones that we're competing with. So if they lose, then it really won't matter. If we win against New England, which is most likely what's going to happen, um, we're pretty much in. Like I think it's like 99% at that point or something. But I'm really not worried about missing the playoffs. Right now I'm worried about winning the division. But that's also not a guarantee. But again, it's not we're not in the playoffs yet. We still have to fight for it, and there are plenty of teams um that we're battling with that are also want to make the playoffs and are pretty solid football teams. So we can't just slack off against New England. We have to make sure that we really win that game. But other than that, we're pretty much a lock for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a lock, as you said, that we make the playoffs at this point. I think you gotta be more worried about the division, but I I hope the Bills don't get cocky and just uh you know
Choke against
choke
New
or
England. Yeah.
lackluster during this game because it's no guarantee. The Colts and the Texans both have the Colts play the Raiders and the Texans play the Titans, both of whom are not good. So, there's I think that they have the tiebreaker over. So if we like lose two in a row, don't get cocky. But I do agree. I think we're gonna make the playoffs. Okay, thank you everybody for listening to this episode of our Buffalo Bills podcast. We'll see you for the pregame on the Patriots. Have a good afternoon.